Welcome to TQ Smart Levers. And today, Ramanand, we wanted to talk about the habit loop. So, what is the habit loop all about?
Hi, Harish. The habit loop is all pervasive and all around us. And we can use it to think about why we do certain habits or routines at the pace that we do. So, what is a habit? A habit is something that has become automatic for you. A good example is brushing your teeth when you get up in the morning. So, as soon as you get up, even if you're groggy, you make your way, take your brush, put paste, and start brushing. So, what explains certain actions that have become so systematic and so automatic? Habit loop sets out to do that. At its very core, a habit loop consists of three parts. The first is called a cue or a trigger. So, take something like the time of the day you get up in the morning, or the fact that you're getting up, that acts as a trigger. Next comes the routine. The routine is the activity that you perform as soon as the trigger is in motion. In the case of our brushing, you pick up the paste, the brush, you conduct the activity of brushing. But this should be enough, but it's not. Most of the times we start building habits or we perform habits because at the end of it is a small pot of gold that we are seeking. And that is what we call a reward. Now, over time, this reward may dissipate, but let's rewind the clock to when you first learned to brush. You might have done that activity because you really like the taste of the paste, your favorite brand that was chosen so that you would do it. Or it could also be to run away from the penalty of being shouted at if you didn't brush on time. So there is always a reward component, which means that you want to do that activity again, and that's where the loop gets closed. So to summarize, a habit loop is a simple model of any habit. It consists of a cue, it consists of a routine to be performed, and it consists of a reward.
All right. This is a very nice explanation of the three-part habit loop, Ramanand. So, where and how have we used the habit loop in our work?
So the habit loop idea is great whenever you want to turn desire into deliberate action. And that's where choose to think is often called in. So our clients who are leading teams would have, let's say, the desire for their teams to up level through, say, reading regularly or forming networks or participating in innovation. Or you could have individuals who have decided to take charge of their own life, say, let me read more regularly or let me post on LinkedIn so that I can build my social capital. Now, what happens is that this is often left as a desire and it doesn't get turned into deliberate action. So, how do you systematize this? You don't want to do this in an ad hoc manner, in a manner that is very effortful. And so, we would love to have a habit around this. We would love to have a ritual around this. And that's where a habit loop can come in handy. We've applied this in designing calendar of cultural interventions to spread values. We've also designed this to create habits of reading among people. Let me take that example. We have something called as CTQ compounds where people join groups in order to build a particular habit. So if it is something like building your social capital or reading every day, what we do is we have a very fixed trigger. We say we will post this cue, which could be a prompt or an article at the specific time, at the specific day. We also have reminders at that specific day. So everything is planned to create that rhythm around that habit. Once the cue comes in, what you expect people to do is to get into action. The article is designed such that it can be read in one sitting, or a social capital cue could be that you take an activity right away, like posting or sharing a news article or connecting with someone. Once you've done this, you have done the cue and the routine. But then there's still the matter of the reward. So we've designed little tidbits. For example, we give people trivia of the day when they have finished reading and they want to click that and get something interesting. It's a very trivial seeming thing, but it's an instant reward. We also ask people to think of a way to reward themselves. They could keep their coffee at bay until they finish this activity. So, having done this, people are more likely to turn that desire into deliberation.
That brings us to the next question, Ramanand. So, what are people missing out on because they don't know that the habit loop is something which should be looked at three-part thing? They're probably looking at it as a monolith where you have a habit or you don't. But there are three parts and because there are three parts, you can actually attack the three differently. What are people really missing out on?
You try to build a habit for yourself. You say, let me just start tomorrow. And you try it, and there is a lot of motivation and a lot of heroism that goes into that activity. And then it is unsustainable, and people then feel very dejected about it. Or it could be that you had a very well sustained habit over the years, something like reading the newspaper daily. And then suddenly you find yourself not being able to do that anymore. So, what really happened? I find that the habit loop is a great debugging tool. You can take it, you can look at your habit, and you can say, oh, I used to do this at this particular time. I used to listen to podcasts in my commute, but now my commute is no longer there because I'm working in a distributed fashion, and so that cue has gone, that whole atmosphere is just gone. So I need to now deliberately redesign my life so that I can find that slot for consumption that I used to have. Or another reason could be that I do it, but I don't particularly enjoy it. It's a chore for me to do it. So can I design some form of reward whenever I complete, so that I get my brain to sign up for this activity tomorrow because I want to keep this sustained. So for someone as an individual, this can be a great debugging tool. It can be a great design tool. Similarly, whenever we get into a situation where we are helping a leader up level their team, we would use this very deliberately in situations where we want to create a sort of a domino effect or a compounding effect over time. A good example is this culture calendar that we spoke of, where we want people engaged with the cultural ethos of a company. And we would say that what are the different cues that we can bank on? It could be an existing all hands meeting, it could be a new cue that you need to introduce in the life of that company. So, from there, a journey of designing these interventions would start. So, if you don't have a framework like this in mind, your whole approach can get very messy, and therefore, you can end up defeated and feeling dejected at the end of it. Use this, and you have a much better chance of success.
And then why do you think knowing about the habit loop is such an important part of the Uplevelers tool?
So if you're an upleveler and you've been paying attention to all our episodes, you want to do things like reading, you want to apply these levers regularly. But what can happen is that you forget to be deliberate about it. A system is ultimately something that you do consistently in the right context so that you can achieve the right kind of impact. When you have habits in place, routines in place, the chances that you would actually perform that activity, whether it be reading, you could be a leader trying to connect with someone in your organization because you're feeling that need to keep in touch with everyone. You can turn all of these into sustainable habits. And so, if you are an upleveler, you need a deliberate system. And therefore, the habit loop will help you construct that deliberate system.
So what this tells me, habit loop is not to be thought only in the realm or context of habits. The application of that idea is much more widespread, especially for an up level.
Absolutely.